Hello everyone, my name is Miss Ashley from Fibo Kids Art Academy, and for today's process art project, we're going to be using different ingredients with our watercolors. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, did you know that you can add sugar or salt to your watercolor projects to create some really cool textures? It's really fun to experiment with these different ingredients. So we're going to be experimenting with different ones. If you'd like to follow along with me, you can, or you can just sit back and watch and then try on your own. Well, the first thing we're going to do is I just divided my paper up this way just to show you the different ingredients that can be used on watercolor and what kind of effect it will have. Because sometimes it's quite a mystery and we won't know what it's going to turn out to look like until we try. So let's go ahead and we'll start with sugar first. And I'm just going to take light blue and I'm just going to paint my entire box with my light blue. Now, this works best if you do have it pretty watery. Definitely add a lot of water to that watercolor. All right, so here's my blue box. And I'm going to pour some sugar onto this box. All right, so there's my blue box. Maybe I'll just add a little bit of water to it. Get nice and blue. All right, so here is where I'm going to put sugar. So I have a packet of sugar right here. And I'm just going to pour that sugar on there. Now, it's not an instantaneous effect, but you do need to wait just a little bit to see what will happen. But I'm just going to pour some sugar. Whoops, got a little too much right there. But there is some sugar. Whoop, got a little bit more on my picture. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for that sugar to soak up the watercolor. So while that's soaking up right here, we're going to move on to our next square, which is going to be for brown sugar. And I'm going to use an orange for that brown sugar. I'm just going to get my paint and paint it orange. I'm going to make sure to clean my brush though. It'll be interesting to see the different effects that each of these boxes have using different ingredients. Because not only can you use sugar and salt and brown sugar and other sort of ingredients for cooking, you can use it in your art projects as well. Let's get just a little bit more of that orange. And I'll get some extra water. I'm not quite sure how the brown sugar is going to turn out. That's what's fun about this process art is because it is so different and unique with each ingredient. Well, I have brown sugar here, so I'm just going to sprinkle that brown sugar right on top. Make sure that it will soak up. All right. And a little bit more on there and push it there. So our sugar is still soaking up that watercolor and our brown sugar is starting to do the same thing as well. Now remember, you do have to wait for it to be completely dry before you do brush off any of that brown sugar. Now for all those people who don't like sugar and like to use stevia instead, that's what we're going to be using next. And for this one, I'm just going to do a nice green. And I'm just going to paint my square. I'm going to add some yellow to that to create yellow green. So we'll add some green first to our stevia square, and I'll add some yellow as well to create some yellow green. Probably my favorite tertiary color is yellow green. All right, just mixing that in. So again, make sure that your sugar and your brown sugar is really soaking up that watercolor. And again, it does have to be dry before you wipe it off. All right. Add a little bit more on there because you want to make sure that there is water involved. And we'll get the stevia. All right. Got that packet here. And not sure how this is going to turn out, but we will see. And I'm just going to sprinkle that on I can put some bigger piles here. I can even try and make a design. Ooh, got a nice little big cloud right there. So there is my stevia now. Awesome. So salt will also create a really interesting effect. However, salt comes in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. We've got regular salt, we've got sea salt, we've got Himalayan pink salt. I just have a small salt and big salt. So what I'm going to do is I am going to be taking my red violet and I'm going to paint my small salt area right here. Tip one. And just really make sure that it has enough water so it will soak up that salt. Or the salt will soak up the water, I should say. Excuse me. All right, so now I'm just going to get the regular table salt. And I'm going to sprinkle that onto my red violet. You can add some bigger piles, smaller piles. We'll see how that effect turns out. All right. Now, as I said before, I have big salt now. I'm going to use a color that we can see. Let's go for a regular blue and add that here. And remember, you want to make sure that you have enough water because that effect might not work if you don't have enough water. But again, the whole point of process art is just to try and experiment, see what you like and dislike, see what you can come up with. There's no right or wrong to how you add that salt or sugar or stevia to your watercolors. And this does work best with watercolors because watercolors are made out of water. It doesn't work quite as well with acrylics. I'm just going to make sure that it's nice and blue. And we can add our big salt next. All right, so I've got some chunkier bits of salt, so they're a little bit more square. And I'm just going to spread that as well. Maybe you can put them in corners. Sprinkle on top right there. All right, and there's my big salt. Now, what if we were to combine all of these into one picture? So why don't we go ahead and try that? If there's anything else that you want to try and experiment with, maybe pepper or chili flakes, again, you can always experiment with those. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to create a nice little colorful picture, making sure my brush is pretty clean. Yeah, I'm just going to add some colors. And there's no right or wrong to how you add those colors as well. You just want it really nice and beautiful. But everything that you do in regards to art will always look amazing. It's just fun to experiment. I'm just dribbling some watercolors on here. It's okay if they mix together. That's the whole point of me adding all this color. And we'll get some of this too. Just want it to nicely mix. And I'll get some darker purple as well. All right, so let's take our different art ingredients and add them into our little square right here. So we've got sugar. I can just sprinkle it in different areas. I also have salt. So I'll add the salt to it as well. And I've got the stevia. I also have brown sugar, so I'll put the brown sugar here as well. You can see that it really starts to soak up that water. brown sugar really starts to soak it up. Isn't that cool? You can get some smaller salt as well. You can make some big piles, because maybe those bigger piles will make it dry just a little bit faster. But it also kind of creates a sparkly effect. Awesome, I think that's all I'm going to add to mine for now. Maybe I'll add just a little bit more sugar. Ooh, that's a lot of sugar. Whoops. And we're just going to wait for it to dry. So again, make sure it's completely 110% dry before you wipe off any of that salt or sugar or stevia. Again, because if you wipe it off too soon with it still being wet, it will spread everywhere. So we're just going to give our picture a moment to dry, and then we'll see the effect that appears on our watercolors. Meanwhile, I'm going to clean my area, making sure my brushes are nice and clean and my watercolors as well. And welcome back. Hopefully by now your picture is dry. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we were able to accomplish. All right, so some areas are still a little bit wet. I find that brown sugar takes forever to dry, but no worries. I have a paper towel here, and you can always just kind of scrape off that brown sugar. If it's still a little bit wet, you can dab it and maybe wait for it to dry a little bit longer. But yeah, the brown sugar definitely takes a lot longer to dry than the regular salt and sugar. So I'm just gonna kind of pick up some of that brown sugar. Okay, it's still just a little bit wet, but you can leave it on there if you want to. All right, now you can just brush off that salt and sugar. However, if you notice, it's a lot easier to brush off the salt than it is the sugar. So the sugar pretty much just stays on the paper and gives it kind of this glittery effect. The stevia also stays on quite a bit, but again, the salt is a lot easier to scrape off. Excuse me. So how about we just take this moment. I'm going to remove my tape from my picture. Now I'll just tap it on the table. We can see what we came up with. So I'm just going to take that right off. Looks really nice. And sugar gives it this nice sparkly effect. Brown sugar takes forever to dry. So maybe you took a nap while you were waiting for it to dry. All right, just about done. Taking off my tape. All right, still working on taking off that tape. Was there a favorite that you have? Maybe you prefer the sugar over the salt because it's glittery, or maybe you like the salt because it dries a lot faster and you can remove that salt easily. All right, just about done. Taking off that tape. And again, instead of brushing it, if you don't want to, you can easily just pick up your paper and you can just tap it on the table. Be careful though, because your brown sugar might still be a little bit wet, but I'm just gonna tap off some of that extra. There goes some of my brown sugar. Tap it just a little bit harder. And you can see the effect that it has. So just to go over, my sugar is quite glittery. My brown sugar is still taking a moment to dry. Maybe once it's fully dry, it'll be a lot easier to take off. Stevia worked pretty same as the sugar, just didn't stay on as much and looks a little bit dustier. I find that the salt is probably my favorite to work with because it is easier to take off and it creates these like really cool effects right there. This was my big salt right there. And then here's the combination of all of the 5 that we had used today. So definitely know which one that you liked of all of these in the comments below, and definitely share your artwork with us at Fibo Kids Art Academy. We would love to see what you came up with. And thank you for joining me today. I hope you had fun learning about the different ingredients you can use in your watercolors. Definitely show us on our Fibo Village page on Facebook, or you can always tag us on Instagram or Twitter, or just let us know on our YouTube channel. And we will see you next time at Fibo Kids Art Academy. Bye.